session 5 in our walk through the book of Philippians as we consider how we can arrange our lives so that we're experiencing deep contentment, joy, and confidence in our everyday life with God. I don't know about you, but one of the things that I find most gets in the way of my experiencing any kind of contentment or joy or confidence is a lack of harmony in interpersonal relationships. And so I'm wondering if you can empathize with that desire for more harmony, for more cooperation, for more unity in your family and social circles. Well, this is one of the things that the Apostle Paul longed for, was to see unity among the people of God. And in the verses that we're going to read today, he gives some really good insights for how to take steps in that direction. So let's read our passage for today. It's in Philippians chapter 2, the first 4 verses. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, and not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. That's that vision of unity, being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. You know, we often take the approach that if only that person or those people would come around to my point of view or understand how I feel, then we could have some kind of harmony. Some of you will remember the song that John Lennon wrote. You know, if someday you'll join us, then the world will be as one. Now, I don't know about you, but trying to get other people to feel what I feel and accept what I think can be a very frustrating experience. So how then can we ever get to this place of unity that we crave and long for? Well, I think that what Paul shows us here in verse 1 is that we have to start by going to God for our need for empathy, understanding, encouragement, and love. We need to go to God for what we need. And that's why he says, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if you have any comfort from his love, any common sharing in his spirit, any tenderness or compassion that you've experienced from him, I think is the implication, then we can go on to be building unity with others. Now, some years ago, I remember really struggling with this idea that God is really the only source of what I need, including my emotional needs. And I needed to drop my expectations that another person or people would be able to meet my needs and should meet my needs. It just didn't seem like it was possible for God to be the one to meet my needs. But even though God's ideal is that we should find our deepest needs met in community with each other, the fact is that we are all fallible human beings, and we often act and react out of our own brokenness. We habitually size each other up, and we find each other lacking. And as we do so, we find all kinds of ways of hurting each other with our attitudes, in our words, in our actions. So we need to go to God first to have our needs met. You know, I just love that picture from Psalm 23. That's called the Shepherd's Psalm. Can you imagine yourself as a little sheep following the Good Shepherd who nourishes you, who causes you to rest, who refreshes your spirit? Your Good Shepherd is with you even in the darkest times of your life, and he guides you through. And then there's this picture of this bountiful table set even in the presence of our enemies, where he anoints our heads with oil and fills our cup to overflowing. And there in that bountiful goodness and love of your shepherd, all your days of this life and beyond, we have everything that we need. This is a beautiful picture of living in deep contentment, joy, and confidence in our everyday life with God. Once I begin to experience that my deepest needs can be met in God, then I can be in a much better place to bring peace to other relationships. Bernard of Clairvaux wrote this about 1,000 years ago. The one who is wise will see their life more like a reservoir than a canal. The canal simultaneously pours out what it receives. The reservoir retains the water till it is filled, and then discharges the overflow without loss to itself. How big is your capacity for receiving God's lavish, all-sufficient grace into your life? Terry Wardle of Healing Care Ministries talks about how we lift our little thimbles, and God has oceans of grace to lavish in them. The bigger our reservoir, the less likely we will be knocked off center by the actions of others or the circumstances in which we find ourselves. So one of my prayers has become, Lord, expand my capacity to receive your love and grace into my life. And then I think that we can follow the example of Christ. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that next time. But that is the whole goal of Christian spiritual formation, is that we become more like Jesus. And I found it so helpful to look at how Jesus handled situations where he was dealing with family and others who just didn't get what he was doing. Mark 3 describes a scene where the crowds have begun to follow Jesus, and Jesus' family decides that Jesus was out of his mind, and they came to take charge of him. They were going to look after things. And at the same time, the rulers of the law, the religious professionals, they decided that what he was doing was from Satan, that he would be casting out demons by the prince of demons. Do you have people in your life who just don't get what you're doing or what you're about, who think you're crazy, or maybe even just plain wrong? Jesus experienced this too. And how did he respond? Well, Jesus had backbone, and Jesus had heart, and Jesus saw the bigger kingdom family. So when I say he had backbone, he explained his position clearly and concisely. Jesus didn't cave either to his family or to the religious authorities. But Jesus had heart. He listened well. He asked good questions, and he had empathy for how others were feeling. Jesus never stopped loving others, even while not accepting their misguided attempts to stop him. And eventually, some of the teachers of the law and even his family came around. And then from that same passage in Mark 3, Jesus saw the bigger kingdom family. Someone reminded me the other day that Jesus showed us that our family is extended beyond our blood ties if we belong to the kingdom, if we belong to Christ. And Jesus took encouragement from others who also seek God's will. They were his family. So, a third clue that the Apostle Paul gives us for how to build unity is at the end where he says, with humility, look to the interests of others. One of the most powerful forces for building more unity, more harmony, more love is to take the effort to make the time to learn what is important to others. You see, when we have the inner security that comes from having our own needs met by God's grace and love, then we are free to humbly seek to understand and include others in our circle of love. I just love the acronym COAL, C-O-A-L, as a way of reminding myself how to take an interest in others. COAL, C, curiosity. Be curious as to why others think and react and act the way they do. In a kind manner, ask questions to help you understand. Take a genuine interest to understand them. O, openness. Be open to them, willing to hear whatever it is that they might say, in whatever way they might say it. And acceptance. Practice accepting people just the way they are. Don't try to argue, manipulate, convince, or change them. And L, love them. So in summary, if we're going to move towards more unity in our sphere of influence, first of all, go to your Good Shepherd for all that you need. It takes time to grow in this relationship of receiving what he has for you. And sometimes it doesn't always look exactly like we think it will. Become a reservoir of his grace. And then follow Christ's example. Have backbone, but also keep an open, loving heart. Remember that you have a kingdom family. And finally, humbly take an interest in others. So what could we do to practice this week? In previous sessions, we suggested some practices that can help us grow our capacity to receive God's abundant grace and love into our lives. And you might want to meditate on Psalm 23 as you practice the 3 R's. Rest in God's presence, receive what he has for you, and respond. And secondly, I suggest this week that you ask the Holy Spirit for an opportunity to look to the interests of another person, perhaps someone with whom you've had disagreements or even conflicts. Gently try to listen to what that person has to say or observe them with curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love in order to better understand them. This is one way that you can train to build bridges of harmony and unity in your sphere of influence, as far as it depends on you. Let me pray over you. Good Shepherd, would you make yourself real to every person who's watching this video? Would you become for them the source of everything they need? Expand their reservoir so they can receive more and more of your lavish grace. Would you help each one to identify that one person in their life right now that they need to listen to with curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love. And help us all to become bridge builders, genuine peacemakers, as we follow in your footsteps. Amen. Next session, we'll be looking at humility, a rather surprising key to experiencing deeper contentment, joy, and confidence in our everyday life with God. I hope you'll join us again. And don't forget to share your comments on our YouTube or Facebook site. I look forward to hearing from you. God bless.